The latest South African crime statistics still remain a concern, and they reveal escalating criminal activity in most categories, especially violent crimes. Now, according to the latest numbers, 989 women were murdered between July the 1st and September the 30th, while a total of 13,000 women were victims of assault with intent to do grievous bodily harm. A total of 7,004 people were killed, an increase of 841 compared to the same period in 2021 when the country was under lockdown. Now, the only two crime categories that saw a reduction in reported crimes over the period were burglary at non-residential premises and arson. So, to help us make sense of these grim statistics, we joined on the line, or rather via Zoom, by Dr Chris de Kock, who is an independent crime expert. Dr de Kock, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, and good morning to the viewers.
You know, Dr. de Kock, I was saying to Leanne off camera that I want to feel, that I'm somewhat surprised by these statistics, but I'm not. And I'm not sure how to process that, because we see so much of these crimes, we hear so much, we report on it on a daily basis, and then you have the announcement of these statistics, and it seems to have become somewhat predictable, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, clearly, because, I mean, if we take from 2012, 2013, right through the annual releases, first the annual releases up to about 2 years ago. And then after that, we got, and I must congratulate the minister for that, that we have the quarterly releases. But every release indicate a increase at least in murder and attempted murder. Some of the other may fluctuate, but if we look at murder and attempted murder, which are very reliable crime trends, especially murder internationally, we find that there's an increase and a constant increase. Even more shocking, in last year, 21-22, we actually had a double-digit increase in murder. And if we look at the latest two quarterly releases, the one before this one and the one of yesterday, we also had a double-digit in both cases. Now, clearly, there's something wrong. There's something wrong in the fact that we are increasing this murder, and we are actually back where we were in the late 90s. We've completed full circle. Between 2002-3 and 2011-12, our murders decreased from about 24,000 down to nearly 15,000. And then suddenly the circle goes in another direction, and now we have completed the circle and we are back where we were 20 years ago. There's something wrong, and the something which is wrong is our interpretation and our analysis. We don't want to see certain part of our findings. We argue the whole time. The whole time we are saying it's arguments. It's arguments, especially when people are drunk, when they have too much to drink. That also contributes to our murders, but we can't do much about that because that happened behind the closed doors of our houses. But we refuse to see a very critical factor, and that is poor people traveling from work to home and home to work on mass transport in the early in dark hours, and then they have a few rand on them, a little bit of money, and then they get robbed. And during this robbery, they are also killed. And then when they are killed, the community, this poor community who doesn't believe in the police anymore, take law into their own hands and kill. This vigilante action. That generates at least a third to a half of our murders. I even believe more. And if we don't address that problem, we're just going to see an increase on a quarterly and a yearly basis.
But what does that say about our country? What does that say about our policing? Because surely these statistics are unacceptably high for a country that's not even at war or any sort of conflict, that you see in other countries. And yet this seems to go on unabated. Are we...
Yeah, well,
Are we perhaps, too lenient when it comes to the prosecution of these crimes?
yeah, I think there's a lot of things which is wrong if we address this factor of robbery and vigilante reaction. I think first, people are just don't. There's no value to life. I think there's a problem with value to life in South Africa. People just easily kill. I think it is because also, you can only get one. You only have one life. You can get 15 life sentences, but you only have one life. So you're going to sit in prison and you're going to die there. That's the fact. But you can kill as many people as you like because nothing different will happen to you. That's one issue. There's also a problem with policing, and not only policing by the police, but policing of the security services, ourselves and everybody else, is that we must take hands, the triangle of community patrollers, security companies, and the police, and we must make use of our limited resources to be as visible as possible, based on intelligence, based on information. There's a problem in that area, so we have to have high visibility there. That was the recipe that was used by partly by the now minister and by his predecessor when he was a commissioner. That was the recipe which was used between 2002-3 and 2011-12, and that is why we had a decrease from 24,000 to 15,000 murders. And then suddenly they forgot that recipe, and for the last 10 years they don't apply it anymore.
And then also alarming is, of course, 294 children were actually murdered during these 3 months, from the 1st of July until the 30th of September. Again, the mind boggles. How do we kill that many children in our country? And you couple that also with the rape statistics, and those are alarmingly high as well, around 10,000, and children also, unfortunately, bearing the brunt of this.
Yeah, we must just remember, first I want to say that is again the lack on our side of the value of life. We don't even value the life of a child. But then on the other hand, as on a purely analysis basis, I must say we must also remember that these children are people between 0 and 18. So, when we talk of 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, teens, it seems they are very violent. And they also drink too much. And they also have arguments. And we see this violence in our schools. People get killed in our schools. You will never expect that people will be killed in schools, that different learners will turn on each other because they are either members of gangs, or they have arguments, or they are bullied, or whatever the case may be.
Now, Dr. de Kock, we could go on talking about this. We've seen our police stations getting robbed of firearms. So, the message that sends to the rest of society when the police themselves are getting robbed, how does one then basically deal with the trust deficit between the community and the police, not just about the conduct of the police and their integrity, but the fact that they themselves are getting robbed?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're getting robbed, they're getting killed, not only as officials, but also sometimes as a member of the public when they are off duty. Many police officers are killed during off duty. So the situation is we will have to build, and we will have to ensure the public that the police actually that can be trusted, that there are some corrupt elements, and we should get rid of the corrupt elements. Then on the issue of the robbery of police stations, The police should get all the resources that they need. That's a major problem. You know, our government doesn't give the police enough resources, and they have to get these resources to basically safeguard the station.
So just as we wrap this, Dr. de Kock, Minister Cele says that over the previous comparable period, South Africa was under lockdown stages 4, 3 and 2, and goes on to say that this in part explains why the latest figures show such high rates of escalation. Now, I want to hear your view on this. Is that, you know, a good way of looking at this, or is that dumbing down this high rate of crime stats? And also, in your opinion as a crime expert, does our police service have a handle on crime in this country, or are we just going about, you know, our business and going with the motions?
Okay, the first question, I don't agree with the minister. I would have agreed with the minister if it was last year this time. I mean, when he released figures last year this time, I was sympathetic and I said, yeah, you can't compare with 2021 when he released statistics, the quarterly statistics of 21-22, compared against 2021, because that year were the real COVID year, and in that year, crime did very strange things. So I threw it away. But if you compare, the new normal is actually 21-22, and we are now comparing 22-23 against that. And that is perfectly a valid comparison. So the growths that we see, especially in murder, which is a reliable trend, and attempted murder and some of our robberies, clearly this is a real increase and not an increase against the COVID year. So that's the answer to the first one. On the second one, I think there are individual police stations, that's where the work are being done, which have a handle on crime. I can assure you that. I personally have knowledge of that. But the problem is that in general, the police should follow, and the minister knows very well. I mean, I worked for the minister as on the police side when he was the national commissioner, and the handle is high visibility, and therefore the police must need resources which they don't get from government. High visibility based on intelligence. Where that recipe is followed in stations, you see decreases in crime. Where that is not followed, you see massive increases.
Well, we have to leave it there. But thank you so much, Dr. Chris de Kock, for helping us break down and, you know, get a better understanding of these crime statistics and what they're telling us. Independent crime expert Dr. Chris de Kock helping us make sense of yesterday's crime stats that show a total of 7,004 people were killed, which is an increase of 841 compared to the same period in 2021 when the country was under lockdown.